All right, then I will turn it over to our program for the day. That would be Pamelajean and Jeannine and ShelterBox.
Well, hello, everybody. Once again, we come to you with update on ShelterBox. We're excited to start a new Rotary year and try to take some effort to stem off the never-ending amount of disasters that are around this world.
Before we start, we want to thank this club for being such good supporters over the last, I don't know how many years, but we have been a hero club, which means that you make a commitment of $1,000 for 3 years in a row. And I believe that this club has a total of $8,000 they've given to ShelterBox, and makes a big difference in this world. So thank you.
Yes, you're considered a hero club, and you're a hero not just to ShelterBox, but you're a hero to us. So thank you for the support, not just for ShelterBox, but to the two of us as ambassadors. And I'm really looking forward to when we can have the car show again, and we can bring the tents out and set up our display for people to see, because it feels to me like it's not a full immersion of what this program can do for people, or your participation in that program on Zoom. But we'll try hard to give you that feeling today, but it really does make a big impact when you can see the tents and touch the equipment. So as we're going through, if there's questions, go ahead and let us know. Let me see. I don't know if I can get the chat window open at the same time, but we'll try. But in the meantime, if you could just, let me know if you have a question, just raise your hand and we'll try to call you as we go along. Okay, so ShelterBox, you guys are very, very well acquainted with this program. It's tents for the people as they come up with disasters, because nobody should imagine living without shelter.
Civil or natural disasters.
And so what we'd like to do is show you kind of a new video that is available to us. So
when disaster hits, ShelterBox is ready to respond.
ShelterBox do something that I don't think any other charity does.
Without shelter, it doesn't really matter what else you have. You need a safe space to be, a roof over your head, and that's what we do best.
Their primary function is to help those people that perhaps nobody else is going to help. I'm Pam, and I'm a volunteer with ShelterBox.
My name's Richard. I'm a Canadian ShelterBox response team member, and when disaster strikes, I'm one of the volunteers that goes out and delivers aid.
Families are there with nothing but just what they're stood up in and what they can hold in their hands. When people are stood in the rain and their homes are gone, we need to get a roof over their head as quickly as we possibly can to stabilise things so how they can rebuild their lives.
There are a lot of different organisations that come in at the time of a natural disaster, but we specialise in shelter. That cornerstone, that building block for families to rebuild their lives. We've got this incredibly agile group of response team volunteers across the globe. Today we're loading up another 240 shelter kits that are going to go out to communities in the northeast of the island.
I'm Alf Evans. I'm the head of operations here at ShelterBox. We are unique because what we want to do is to concentrate on that one thing and do it as well as we possibly can. We've deployed to over 100 countries and all kinds of disasters, conflict, hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis.
These are brutal situations where you see things that people shouldn't have to see, and you're supporting people that, are in their absolute worst hour. And I think that's a time when humanity shines through.
To be able to help someone on the other side of the world is just amazing.
Everything we do is about families and keeping that family together. When a family who have been at the mercy of the conditions, the mercy of the disaster, suddenly get a space to call their own, that family unit can repair and heal.
Keeping that family together, giving them a home, albeit a temporary home, it means that that family has got something that they can hang on to help them help themselves rebuild their lives.
استلمنا والله اسفنجات، استلمنا عوازل وعدة مطبخ وهذن يعني شواكيش هذن معهن بانسة. شكرا للمساعدة، شكرا للي عم يساعدونا. يعطيكم ألف عافية.
For us, it's all about teamwork. We are project partners with Rotary International, but that doesn't cover how local that partnership really goes. We work with Rotarians on the ground who have amazing insight and connections in that local area that we're working in.
In the countries we go to, there are volunteers and networks that support us to do what we do.
We'll try and get the aid there through any means possible. Canoes, ships, tractors, tuk-tuks, scooters, you name it, we've done it. And it gets increasingly difficult as you get towards that, what they call the last mile. And that is when you may be carrying it by hand with damage to the infrastructure.
We've all got our part to play. You could go out into the community, you could go into schools, you could stand on the street corner shaking a pot.
I hope the money I've raised goes a long way to helping people who need the aid.
It became quite infectious, supporting this charity that just does things differently, that goes where help is needed most and gets there as quickly as possible. And I think what's exciting is there's different ways for people to get involved.
If you're thinking about getting involved, you've already made that step. Get involved.
It gives me something to shout about and be proud of. Our vision is a world where no family goes without shelter after disaster. And I'm really proud to play my part in that. Thank you for watching.
So ShelterBox has continued to work hard to provide shelter to people around the world. I have a little graphic so you can see where we are actively working, but it works so much in tandem, not only with Rotary International and the disaster programs that RI has, but with other major non-governmental organizations like the UN, Red Cross, Red Crescent, Doctors Without Borders.
I also work with the animal shelters for people that have cows or burros in the middle of floods and trying to get them out.
So you can see the statistic in 2020, how many people around the world were displaced, and this is only going to continue to rise. By the year 2050, experts estimate that 200 million people will be displaced worldwide due to conflict and disaster. In the next 20 minutes, 25 people a minute are displaced. So by the time we're done making this presentation, 1,500 people will no longer have a place to live. And so it's really our job at ShelterBox to try to get our message out to as many people as possible so that we can continue to raise the money we need so that we can meet that need.
This number comes from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees.
So you can see what a typical setup would be. I think this is from the Caribbean. You'll notice it says ShelterBox on the tent. One thing is in places of more civil conflict, those logos are masked because those tents become a theft item and we don't want people, the refugees, stealing from one another. So we mask it in some places, or we'll have to go to the UN spec tents so that there's more.
They're targeted.
They're not targeted. So as you can see, this is what's typical to a big box. Big boxes are slowly becoming fully outfitted like this, are slowly becoming only 15% of the aid that we're sending out, because every disaster requires a different assessment of equipment. We may use the big tubs, but they're not going to be completely outfitted this way anymore.
One thing you might notice that's missing is we used to have a little stove in there, and one thing I love about ShelterBox is that they're constantly regrouping, asking what's working, asking what's not working. And the one thing that they said is, we never use the stove. We're used to cooking in a hole in the ground, and that's what we do. So that's the one thing that they eliminated, and they keep all the time updating what they're using and how they can help people to actually build the shelter they need.
The other thing that we've learned in working with ShelterBox is that we have about 3 depots around the world. There's one in the Philippines, in Dubai, and one in Panama. And every country has different requirements or restrictions on the type of equipment that can come into their country. So one country may not allow us to bring in hammers that have wooden handles. So all the hammers have to be swapped out with something plastic. And then we may go to a different company or a different country, excuse me, where we can't bring in wooden handles. So we have to switch all those hammers out with something that's made of plastic. So the boxes themselves in the depots, those 3 depots, they're constantly being retrofitted for the disaster that they're going out to. The other thing you might have noticed in the video is down here in the lower corner, the shelter toolkit. This is now becoming more and more what we're sending out, especially in urban areas, because it's tarpons and nails and hammers and such, because what we're screens, because what we're finding is that in that capacity, there's enough on the ground equipment or materials, wooden stuff, that what they need is something to kind of hobble it together. A tent really can't be put down in the middle of, like Manila Bay or, Subic Bay or somewhere that's more urban. But we're finding the shelter toolkits are more of where we're going. Go ahead, Pam.
I was just saying, if they could build the bare bones of something, then they can find corrugated tin. They can find other things to make their roof, so that they aren't having to rely on us, but more on natural products.
So where our money was, our high ticket item is the big green box, we can buy so much more of the shelter toolkits for the same money. And so that gives us the ability to aid more people. And of course, the Luminade lamps, this is, from Shark Tank. And you can see here that, we're using it. And the newest edition, that's a good word for it, has a USB port, because what they were finding in Nepal was they still had cell service, but no electric. So they would walk 3 miles to a bar or restaurant or somewhere, and they would to charge their phones. So with these Luminades, they can actually charge them in the sun, and it does give them light at night, and they can charge their phones, and this keeps them in the safety of their villages or their towns. Yeah, go ahead, Pam.
Well, there was 2 things that those shelter kits include, and one is water supplies. And I think we've done a lot of things about water purification. So
that keeps with our thing about polio.
So this is on the bottom there. That's a water purification kit. Very, very simple. Everybody understand it. Some of them in the past they would get the pieces wrong or not have a piece or something. This is very simple and gives them direct water access to clean water. And then also, after a disaster, you have vector-borne diseases, and so the netting is really important to keep the mosquitoes out, because it helps prevent the malaria and the other things that are transmitted by mosquitoes.
So there's another shot of the toolkits. So this is our current deployments as of this month, as of the 14th. You can see that we're evaluating again in Honduras, the Sudan, and Syria, what additional aid needs to be done. We're making planning of bringing aid into Nigeria and Mozambique. We're implementing some of the strategies that we've already come up with for the aid for Ethiopia and Cameroon. And so you can see that we're really busy. This map does change a lot. But it changes according to the season. So once we start seeing typhoon season and hurricane season, you'll see more in the South Pacific and more in the Caribbean. Another shot of using the toolkits. This is a favorite picture of how the toolkit was used to give a family more of their home back after a disaster.
That's what I was talking about. If they can get a good foundation built, then using the toolkits, then they can use the natural resources around them to complete it.
And for those of you who remember Richard Dick Kroll, who was a member of the club when he was living in town, his daughter was in Thailand in 2004 when they had that huge tsunami that came in through Thailand. And that's when ShelterBox really hit the world stage, because we filled the belly of this Azov Soviet jet transport. It's the largest one of its kind in the world. And you can see we had it just packed to the gills with boxes and getting aid and house and tents out to people in Thailand. But part of the story is, you know, we'll go anywhere, and we'll go that last mile any way we can to get the equipment out to who needs it. And in the interest of COVID, we've had to also make some adjustments with making sure that, because though we have 3 vaccines in this country, we opened up Oregon today, so you don't have to wear your masks because we've reached at least some level of efficiency with the vaccine. There are many places on the planet that are still raging with the pandemic. And so we are working very diligently to make sure that we outfit our people that are going in country to deliver the aid, and that when we are delivering the aid, that we're following all the prescribed protocols that are set up by WHO and the UN.
Like I was saying, that the ShelterBox adapts. One of the things that has been added to the ShelterBox is water basins and soap, so that people can keep themselves clean.
So you can see here's one that was in Syria, where she was using the equipment to keep the hands washed. And now that's a standard piece of equipment that we're sending out. So how does all this work? Well, it works with the fact that we are supported so diligently by our #1 partner, which is Rotary Clubs and Rotarians. As some of you might have remembered from previous presentations that we've done, Rotary Club in Cornwall, England, started ShelterBox as a 2000 millennial project in the club, and now look at it. It's just gone international, and it's huge. It's now has 17 affiliate countries associated with ShelterBox. So there's ShelterBox of Germany and ShelterBox of Australia and Canada and the United States, all of them working diligently to coordinate all the volunteers, because we don't get paid. Nobody gets paid by ShelterBox to talk about ShelterBox or promote ShelterBox, or even to be a ShelterBox response team member where you go in country and deliver the aid. These are all volunteer positions. People are doing it on their own dime. Matter of fact, all the real paid staff for ShelterBox USA, all 7 of them live in Santa Barbara. So the bottom line is, when you're giving money to ShelterBox, you are getting the massive bang of the buck in direct aid to the people who need the aid. And in the 20 years that we've been an organization, our growth and our financial support has been directly through the help of Rotarians and Rotary clubs like Forest Grove. And we want to expand that out. So if you know of other organizations, you work for an organization where this would be a great match, we would love to make a presentation to them so that we can tell them the story of ShelterBox and have them also be a financial supporter. Now, it isn't just giving money. We also need people who would like to be ambassadors like us and go around and talk about it, be a club advocate, which we do, be a club champion, or you can even work your way up to being a response team member. And that's a really hard thing to do, but it's doable. You have a thought or two?
No.
I'm just trying to keep up with where we're at here. So we're really kind of towards the end of our presentation. We want to say that here in the Forest Grove, like Pam said, in the last, gosh, maybe 6-7 years, we've given as a club over $8,000. And so I wanted just to bring to your attention that the cost and the ability to give has changed a bit over time. The big green box is still $1,000, but any individual or any club could give any dollar amount that is between like $20 and that or more, because every dollar can buy us something that we absolutely need to provide shelter to people. And so this is some examples of that. And we're also looking for sustaining members. Not only is our club a hero club because we have made the commitment over the past few years to give $1,000 a year, and I just hope that our club continues being a hero club by giving $1,000 a year to ShelterBox, but an individual can also become a ShelterBox builder. This is like being a sustaining member of OPB or a sustaining member of the Symphony or a season ticket holder for the Timbers. It's where you give your money without thinking every year and every month to this organization. Nobody's laughing. I really thought somebody would laugh at that. Okay, so yes, you can be a sustaining member for ShelterBox, and we have these lovely pins that make you a ShelterBox builder. And we're looking for somebody who'd be willing to give at least $20 a month, and you can see how much that would provide. You can see what $85 a month, how much that would provide to ShelterBox on an annual basis. So if it's in your wheelhouse or in your heart to become a sustaining member of ShelterBox, please reach out to Pam and I, and we'll get you set up. There is a form you need to set up to become a sustaining member, and then we would love to deliver to you your pin. So again, thank you so much for all that you've done for ShelterBox over the years. We really appreciate your nonstop support for Pam and I. Any words?
No, just thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any questions about the presentation that anybody might have, or anything in the chat box?
Yes, I actually have a question, Jeannine. A couple of them, actually. I was wondering about the sustainability of those shelters in terms of, now we've been a hero members now for 8 years. So those original tents that were given out, do you happen to know how many of those actually ended up becoming like a permanent home for individuals that were displaced? And then my second question is, you'd mentioned that it's very difficult to become a response team member. Wondered if you wouldn't mind just elaborating on that just a little bit.
Absolutely. First off, yes, the tents are considered disaster relief equipment. They're not supposed to have a shelf life beyond 3 years. There are some tents in the world where people have converted them into their brick and mortar business, where women are using them as their seamstress shops or their tea shops. We've had reports from response team members who have gone back into the field for evaluation of delivered aid and has seen where older equipment has been recycled into the sails for boats or hammocks in hot weather. And so the people, when they receive it, it's theirs forever. And so once they've used it, it's theirs to use beyond. And some of them have recycled it into other meaningful pieces of equipment that meets their geographical and cultural needs. Why is it tough to be a ShelterBox response team member?
I'll take a little bit of that. I'll jump in. Jeannine and I went to do some training on that, and I have to say that for me, it was very difficult in the one area that, first of all, not only it's physically difficult, those boxes are really heavy, but for me, it was more the decision making that you had to have, decisions you had to make. For example, you brought in 200 shelter boxes and you have them in a warehouse and you go to get them and there's only 160 and you say, where are the rest? Oh, there was only 160. Well, they've sold the rest. You know, the people that were watching the warehouse took them out and sold them. So now you only have 160 and you go into these villages, and we did a mock-up of that where Jeannine and I had to go into these villages, and then you have to decide who is going to get these tents. Is it the women with children? Is it the old people that have no place to go? Is it the families? And then you have to say, well, where are you going to put them? We're in a flood zone. So, well, will this farmer let you do it? Well, he'll let you do it if you give him 5 of those tents for himself. And then just on and on and on, these decisions you're making. You go to we went to a tent and we're supposed to meet with the UN and the animal protection rights and all these people. And the animal protection rights are saying, hey, you've got blankets in there. We need those for the burros. Give them to us. Don't give them to the people. We need them. And so it's just a constant evaluation.
The level of corruption in some of these countries is pretty astounding. And though it's not always that difficult, and they deliberately made our weekend of learning about what it is to be a response team member hell, true. But the thing is that you still are dealing with these are all examples of stuff that we've really had to deal with. The corruption, the crime, the men with guns, people making choices. But it also is hard. So it's physically hard. You have to be in really fit condition. You have to be emotionally centered, mentally centered.
How do you look in the eyes of a little boy that says, where's the tent for my mom?
Right.
And you're done. You have no more.
There's nothing more to do.
And that's what one man was saying. It just broke his heart. I'm sorry, son. I have nothing for your mom.
So for some of these guys, and I mean, we met a lot of the response team members when we were in Texas at our training, and they're all like, they're men, okay? They're all like, you know, firefighters and EMTs and prior military and whatnot. And you could see on their faces that it really is a toll to go out into those fields. But that doesn't mean somebody out of shape like myself can't go, and I'm not giving up my dream. It just means that it's a little tougher to do the physicality.
And your job is different. But these men also have, like one man has a vineyards. I mean, he's leaving his vineyards on the drop of a hat to go fly to this disaster. And so there's nobody running his business while he's gone.
So to answer your question, Tim, it's doable, but the process is very arduous. It takes a couple years to even get selected, and then you have, even if you make through the American selection process, you have to go to England and you have to go through a 2-week boot camp with the Royal Marines. And if you survive that, you might be selected for 3 or 4 spots that they have. It's really
that's
hard.
Incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. It's really hard. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other thoughts or questions? Did we scare everybody off? Hopefully not. Yes, Paul.
I've been reading a book called Sully, and it's about a African male that was found out to be very good at basketball. So he was shipped to America, and he would send money back to his family in South Sudan. And they said, quit sending money because we're going to get robbed because we showing too much wealth.
Yep.
Does ShelterBox address that issue of, well, we just a little bit here, a little bit there, and like you said, disguising the emblems so they don't show what's happening?
We are very sensitive to that, especially in refugee camps in Africa, which is why we don't really use the ShelterBox tent. We actually distribute the UN spec tent because they're universally understood to be just worth X dollars. And so you kind of psychologically and legitimately cut that amount of avarice out.
Paul, the other thing is that when in some of these civil unrest countries, they see these beautiful tents and that's where they bomb it.
Right. So we've had to go to situations where we use the least pretty, the least attractive scenario that still provides them the amount of shelter that they need. I mean, if you took a satellite picture of the Chad Basin 5 years ago, there you could have seen this little refugee camp, and if you take it now, it's just grown so much because of the civil unrest, and it's really sad. It's just so sad. Any other thoughts or questions? Yes, Chuck.
Yeah, so on your diagram, you had the team members and so on and so forth. There was one money changer, money giver.
I don't remember what it says. I think it's a change maker or something.
Change maker.
And I think that that's a person that they have all kinds of names for these volunteer positions. I'm not exactly sure what a change maker is, but they are constantly looking for people who would like to volunteer and do what we're doing, taking the message out, taking it to Intel, taking it to Nike, taking it to organizations like OHSU, Tuality, where they would probably be likely to write a check to Doctors Without Borders, which is somebody we partner with in other countries. We partner in Africa a lot with the international arm of Habitat for Humanity, so that we're not just building these tents and coming back 18, 24 months later and putting a tent down again because it's been washed away through a flood, that we're really building sustainable housing for these people for the long term. So I think change maker is one of those persons. Any other thoughts? Well, I'll put the bite on Bryce. Is he still here? How convenient. Oh, there he is. So I'm still looking for our club to, in your calendar year, to continue our support of ShelterBox. So that's my ask. And I'm sure your board will let me know when you're going to write me a check so that I can send it down to Santa Barbara.
God bless you all.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you both, Jeannine and Pamelajean. It's ShelterBox is something that, once brought to the attention of our club, is something our club has just really stayed with, and that has become a line item on our foundation budget. And even in this year, where we've had 2 Concours in a row that we have not been able to do, that ShelterBox line item remains. So you definitely have our support, our ongoing support, and it's such good work. It's really important. So thank you.